I'm sure you would have heard the term OCR in the news a few times, but what is it? Where does it come from? Who decides it in the first place? And what kind of role does it play on the New Zealand economy? Well, if you don't know the answers to these questions, I'm going to answer them for you in this short video. So let's find out. The official cash rate, or OCR for short, is set by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. Now, the role of the Reserve Bank is very important, and the OCR is just one of the tools it uses to counteract or to regulate inflation. The cash rate also affects how much your bank will charge you for their loans. The amount of interest also affects the spending, the savings, and also the borrowing that goes on in New Zealand. Now, the amount for spending, borrow, and savings also affects the prices in New Zealand. So how does the OCR actually affect how much your bank is going to charge you in interest? Well, the banks basically borrow money from the Reserve Bank. They then put a margin on that money, and you borrow exactly the same money they just borrowed, but at a higher rate for them to make a profit. It's a bit like if you think of the Reserve Bank as being Toyota, and they are selling cars from their factory to the dealerships, which in this case will be the banks. The dealerships will then add a margin to that vehicle and then on-sell that to the consumers. So it's exactly the same with the Reserve Bank, except they are selling money to the banks, and the banks are then again selling the money onto you in the form of a higher interest rate. The Reserve Bank uses the OCR corridor system to influence how much your bank's going to charge you in interest. Think of the Reserve Bank as being the bank's bank, where they go to borrow money at a wholesale rate. Now, the wholesale rate at the moment is 0.5% above the OCR. At the moment, the OCR is sitting at 1.5%, which is the lowest it's ever been since March 1999, which is quite a long time. So if you're looking to borrow from your banks, they need to go to the Reserve Bank and borrow those funds at 2%, and then they add their margins to get to a rate what they're charging you today. Now, banks can also borrow between themselves if they wanted to try and get you a better deal, but it'll never be higher than the wholesale rate offered by the Reserve Bank. So that spread between the official cash rate and the wholesale rate is the corridor system. And the Reserve Bank is trying to encourage banks to play within the corridor system, and they can also then regulate how much they're going to charge on interest rates. The same goes for deposits. So if you wanted to deposit money with your bank can take those surplus funds and deposit it with the Reserve Bank at the OCR. Again, just trying to regulate within that corridor system to make sure that the banks play nice and they're not going to overcharge you. The supply and demand of money also has a really big impact on the OCR. And the Reserve Bank uses the cash settlement system to try and regulate how much money is in the New Zealand economy at any time. So if there's too much money in the economy, then the banks don't have to go to the Reserve Bank and ask for money, which means they can lower their funding cost. Now, the reverse is also true, that if there's not enough money in the banking system, so for argument's sake, let's say people don't actually deposit funds into the bank, then they will need to go to the Reserve Bank to meet that demand, which again increases that funding cost and also interest rates. It's also important to know that the OCR only really affects the floating rate offered by your bank. Fixed rates are calculated on a different way, and that's a total video just by itself. So hopefully now you understand the OCR, what it does, where it comes into play, what the Reserve Bank does. So when you talk to your friends, you'll sound a little bit smarter. So hit the like button and the subscribe button to show me some love, and also to get weekly videos from me on a regular basis. So that's it from me. If you found this helpful, leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.